Hello. Hello. We are just getting started with this latest reading session for Modazushi. I see a lot of really familiar names in the chat, but just in case someone is lurking and they have no idea what this is. Hi, I'm Brittany. This is the Gaywatch channel. I usually watch gay things, but I watched a gay thing, and now I'm reading the gay thing that inspired the thing that I watched. I'm pretty sure that was a sentence. So I have seen The Untamed, and that's why I'm here reading the book. And we're almost to the end of Volume 1. Volume 2 releases in May. I know I say that all the time, but just so that, you know, it gets to everyone. Oh, we're on page 300 exactly. We are. Well, damn. It's going to be an extra long session today, depending on my back and depending on my chair, which is currently in the process of breaking down. I'm hoping to go half an hour longer today. So instead of 3:30 to 4:30, we're going to go to 5. Hopefully. If my back starts objecting, or if my chair just starts being super frustrating and sliding down, then we may have to call it earlier than that. But I'm hoping we get in a good extra solid half hour. That would be awesome. And story-wise, we were about ready to get into the Chang obliteration. We're about to show up at the Chang residence and investigate the who, what, where, when, how, why behind why they were all wiped out, I believe 10 years ago. They all just got wiped off the face of the planet, and we are about to find out why, I believe. How is everybody? Somebody, before I went live, oh, right, and excuse any coughing. I currently have an asthmatic cough going, and I need to see a doctor about it, but I'm also really busy moving into a house that needs a lot of work done to it, so I haven't gotten to a doctor yet, but I'm getting there. But I have double water today for the long session, so here's hoping that I don't cough my lungs out, but if I do, I'm sorry. Just please excuse. But no, I saw you guys talking before I went live, and a couple of you mentioned reading Heaven Official's Blessing next, and I'm going to, so like the current plan, now that I have all three, you know, volume 1s of MXTX's stuff, is that with Heaven Official's Blessing, I'm starting that series with the Donghua, with the animated series. And then, because I know that's not done yet, because it's a really long story, but I'm going to get caught up on the Donghua. Hopefully this summer is when the Donghua will happen. And then once I'm caught up with the Donghua, I will read up until that point in the original novel. So we're gonna go back and forth with Heaven Official's Blessing. But what I am gonna do with the villain saving system, I believe that's how those words are put together, is I am just going to read all of that first. And I may or may not watch the animated series. I hear both good and bad things about it. So I'm going to start with the book. And then eventually we'll get to a point where I have experienced all three of MXTX's stories. Because why the hell not? Because if she's going to be this good at it, then I suppose... Oh, was there a cat? Was there a cat cameo? Oh, there he is! We have a white fluffy cat cameo for you, apparently, today. That is the wife's cat. His name is Pretty Boy, and he is currently bathing in the window. He may or may not stay there the entire time. It all depends if he gets cozy. But that's the MXTX plan, pretty much. That's gonna be how that goes. All I know about Heaven Official's Blessing, quite literally, is that it's almost twice as long as Moto Zushi, which is unreal. That's a Harry Potter series. The Harry Potter series was 1,000,000 words long, and I believe, if I saw correctly, Heaven Official's Blessing is like 900K. That's obscene. That is truly obscene. But given the gayness, I'm down. I'm down for it, sure. Which came first, actually? Which of these were her first... Which was her first book? Moto Zushi, Heaven Official's Blessing, or Villain? I'm not on the lowest latency, so there's a bit more of a gap between when I say it and when you hear it. So, pardon this little gap, what I'm waiting for. There we go. Oh, Villain was first! Get the heck out! Villain was first, Moto Zushi, and then it was Heaven Officials. Cool! Interesting! I'm always really interested with an author's path, really, as they put out more work, like where they started, where they are now, kind of what they've done. I love that kind of shit, because I aspire to be an author, so this makes sense. Okay. We've had a few minutes. They do get longer. Yeah, that would be, because I know that Villain is fairly, not short as in America short, but shorter. And it's just getting longer. Pardon. But yeah, we've had we've had a few minutes for everybody to trickle in. So let's go ahead and get started. Once again, we are at page 300. We're about to investigate the Chang massacre. And where were we exactly on? Oh, right. We're about to get the download on Wei Wuxian's mom. All right. We can start there. Sure. Okay. All right. I'm sure this isn't going to hurt my feelings at all. Also, if you see me making really weird movements like this, I have a hot water bottle on my back to help with the sitting. So it's nothing bizarre. I'm just moving that from one side of my back to the other, and hopefully that will let me get all the way to 5 o'clock. I was checking to see if the wife had said anything in chat. She's probably lurking, though. She's really, really busy. It has been crazy ass at her job the past couple days. She's been super busy, so she probably won't comment, but she is most likely listening as best she can. Alrighty. Towards the top of page 300. Wei Wuxian was the son of a family servant of the Jiang clan of Yangmeng, Wei Chengzhe. We're going to go with that for now. And his mother had been the wandering cultivator, Kangxi Sandrin. We know. Jiang Fengmian and his wife had been well acquainted with his parents, but Jiang Fengmian had very rarely reminisced aloud regarding his old friends. And Jiang Fengmian's wife usually... I almost pronounced it like with an actual Z. We had to just kick it off with a whole bunch of new names. Thanks, book. Yu Jihuan? We'll go with that. Yu Jihuan had never spoken well of them to him. Honestly, things had been pretty good if she didn't whip him or tell him to scram or kneel in the ancestral hall or stay away from Zhang Cheng. Many of the stories he'd heard about his parents were told to him by others, so he actually didn't know much more than anyone else. It's depressing. Lan Wangji also stopped, then turned around to meet his gaze. Have you ever heard of one named Xiao Xingchen? I know that name! We know that name. We know that name. Wei Wuxian thought for a moment, then replied, no. No is no is correct, Lan Wangji said. It was 12 years ago when this man emerged from the mountain and achieved fame, and now there are none who speak of him. Ooh. 12 years ago happened to be the year right after the siege of the Yiling burial mounds, so they had just missed each other. Wei Wuxian asked, which mountain was it, and who was his teacher? Lan Wangji replied, the mountain is unknown. Xiao Xingchen studied the way of the Tao under the tutelage of Baoshan Sanren. That's right. Did I know that? I feel like I know that. There's so many damn details in this freaking work. Now Wei Wuxian understood why Lan Wangji had said that this man was linked to his mother. He said, that means this Xiao Xingchen was technically my mother's martial brother, huh? Kangxi Senran had also come from Baoshan Senran school. This Baoshan Senran was a hermit cultivator who lived hidden away from the secular world. Apparently she was a cultivator of the same generation as Wen Mao and Lan An. Other celebrities of that generation had long since dissipated in both body and soul. Only Baoshan Senran still walked the earth. If that really was true, then she should be many hundreds of years old, which proves she was in possession of incredible cultivation. In the years ruled by those of her generation, with Wen Mao as leader, clans had flourished while sex declined. Leading factions of cultivation authority that were bound by blood ties sprouted like bamboo shoots in the spring. Any cultivator with a lick of fame founded their own sect, and yet this master chose to retreat to a mountain hermitage. Hermitage? I can't even pronounce English words anymore. I am so sorry for my entire existence. Her cultivator name was Baoshan, meaning to embrace the mountains. Which mountain was it that she embraced? No one knew, but it was precisely because no one knew that it was called a hermitic retreat. If she could be easily found, it wouldn't have been considered so. This elder led a hermitic life up upon an unknown, immortal mountain. She often secretly picked up orphans and brought them up the mountain, taking them in as her disciples. However, every disciple had to swear an oath, focus only on cultivation in this life. Never descend the mountain, never enter the secular world. If they did, no matter the reason, they would never be allowed to return. They would have to survive on their own and train in hardship within the secular world, never again to have any ties with their one-time school. People said Baoshan Sanren was worthy to be called an enlightened master, and this rule of hers truly demonstrated great foresight. Over hundreds of years, she only had 3 disciples leave the mountain: Yanling Daoren, Kangxi Senran, and Xiao Xingchen. Oh, damn! 3 disciples, not one of whom had come to a good end. Why would we have happy things? Why would we have happy things? Wei Wuxian had known from a young age what the end had been for the first 2 disciples, so there was no need to listen to those tales again. So what Lan Wangji succinctly told him, was the story of the deeds of that last disciple, Wei Wuxian's mother's younger martial brother. I thought we were getting Chang obliteration. We're not doing Yi City today. Are we doing Yi City today? When Xiao Xingchen emerged from the mountain, he was 17. Although Lan Wangji had never met him in person, he had heard from others of the man's noble bearing. At the time, it had only been a few years since the end of the Sunshot campaign, and the siege of the Yiling burial mounds had just concluded. The great clans dominated and were recruiting for talent all over the place, all to serve their own purposes. Xiao Xingchen emerged from the mountains with the desire to save the common world. Immensely skilled and taught by a true master, he charged the mountain in his first night hunt with his 1 Taoist whisk, his 1 longsword, and his 1 lone person, and claimed first place, winning fame in 1 battle. At the sight of this young cultivator who was pure in character and accomplished in cultivation, the cultivation clans all felt great admiration. They all sent invitations to him, but Xiao Xingchen courteously declined each one, making it clear that he did not wish to affiliate with any clans at all. Instead, together with his most intimate friend, he was determinedly set on establishing a brand new sect that did not emphasize blood ties. That is the gayest thing I've ever heard. The gayest thing. Oh my God. king of queers. Oh my god. You're kidding me. Who other than the queerest of queer people would be like, no, this blood tie stuff, no. What about found family? Can we do the found family thing? I'm gonna take this friend of mine, who is my most intimate partner, and go and, create my own found family over blood. A fucking icon. An icon, ladies and gentlemen. An icon. Oh my god. I'm fine. This is fine. I'm fine. Xiao Xingchen's character was as soft as pampas grass, but his heart was as strong as a rock. Gentle on the outside, steadfast on the inside, and spurning contamination by corrupt forces. At the time, if a difficult matter arose, any at all would rush to seek help from him first and foremost. Furthermore, he never rejected anyone, so opinion of him was extremely high. She's building it all up so that she can fucking rip it down. But so far, not in a way that feels overly exploitive. Like one book that I'm not going to mention. The obliteration of the Chang clan of Yuyang happened right around then. One fateful day, the family head of the Chang clan of Yuyang took a few family members with him to attend a night hunt. Over half a month later, he suddenly received the awful news during his travels and hurried home. After the period of mourning, it was discovered upon further investigation that someone had maliciously destroyed the protection array of the home, allowing the entry of a band of cruel and belligerent evil spirits. Beyond that, everything was a mystery. Normally, few people paid heed to the tragedies of such small clans, but this situation was unique. The Sunshot campaign had long since ended, and the siege of the burial mounds was just over. On the surface, the state of the world could have been said to be somewhat peaceful, but to have such an incident happen so out of the blue immediately caused huge waves among the cultivation clans. There were many alarmists spreading the rumors that the Yiling patriarch Wei Wuxian had returned to the world for revenge. However, there was never any evidence of that. Never any evidence. God damn it. I'm not gonna get on that soapbox. Okay. And no way of catching the murderers. Of course, Xiao Xingchen could not remain indifferent to this case. He voluntarily took it on right then and there to seek the truth for Changping. The name of the murderer was Xu Yang. This Xu Yang was younger than Xiao Xingchen, a boy through and through. Why is that so accurate? That is lethally accurate about Xu Yang. However, his odious temperament, good word, odious, was not hampered by his young age. At 15, he was already a major thug known far and wide in the Kui Prefecture area. His smile was sweet. Yeah. His methods vicious and his personality cruel. In Kui Prefecture, everyone's face would change colors at the mention of Xu Yang's name. He grew up on the streets as an urchin and seemed to have a grudge against Changping's father, which he had nurtured for many years. It was revenge, among other reasons, that prompted him to commit this violent crime. After Xiao Xingchen had figured out the truth, he crossed 3 provinces and caught Xu Yang, who was still freewheeling about and brawling with others, and quite self-satisfied. At that time, the Jin clan of Lanling was holding a symposium at their residential mansion, Golden Carp Tower, and all the major clans were present to debate and discuss Taoism. There, Xiao Xingchen dragged Xu Yang forward for all to see. The whole story was explained in detail, and severe punishment was pleaded for. I would have loved to see that in the show. I would have loved to see that in the show. I would have Anyway. You know, if you're gonna have a spin-off for The Untamed, just throwing that idea out there. Xiao Xingchen had laid down every piece of evidence clearly. Most of the clans had no objections. Only one clan opposed him vehemently, and that was Jin Clan of Lanling. Fucking of course. Objecting under those circumstances would risk universal condemnation, said Wei Wuxian. Could Xu Yang have been a favorite of Jing Guangshan? A guest cultivator, Lan Wangji replied. He was their guest cultivator, Wei Wuxian asked. The Jing clan of Lanling should have ranked as one of the 4 major clans by then, right? Why invite a little thug to be a guest cultivator? This is the second connection, Lan Wangji said. He stared intently at Wei Wuxian's eyes and continued slowly. It was because of the Yin Tiger Tally. What the hell is that? Wei Wuxian's heart violently lurched. He was definitely no stranger to the name Yin Tiger Tally. On the contrary, no one was more familiar. Are we talking about the... Is that another name for that camp? Oh my god, I didn't even see the art. Holy shit, look at this art. Hang on, okay, I gotta bring... Hang on. Gotta show you this art. Gotta show you this art without showing you me. Okay. Look at that. Look at that. That's so freaking cool looking. That's gorgeous. That is like goth art at its finest. Shit, yeah. Love the birds. Oh, man. And the moon crescent over. Beautiful. God tier. Of all the spiritual weapons he had refined while alive, it was the most terrifying and at the same time the most desired by all. Right. Is it called the Stygian Amulet in Untamed? And Yin Tiger Tally in here? Am I getting that correct or am I totally wrong? Yeah. Stygian Tiger Amulet. Yeah. Oh my god, I was right about something. Okay. I got so distracted by art. What are we talking about? The function of a Tiger Tally was to command. As the name implied, those who possessed the Yin Tiger Tally possessed commanding power over corpses, ghosts, and belligerent spirits of all sorts, forcing their obedience. Back when Wei Wuxian had first created it, he hadn't thought too much about it. Why would you? Sure. Using his primordial spirit alone to control the corpse puppets and belligerent spirits made it inevitable that there'd be times when he got tired. He recalled having seen a rare iron spirit in the stomach of a Yao beast once, and so he had retrieved it, refined it, and forged a Tiger Tally. The stomach of a Yao beast. We're not talking about my favorite turtle, are we? Ooh, don't tell me. Okay. Wei Wuxian had only used that Tiger Tally once after it was forged. He had instantly realized it was bad news. Yeah! He gets an idea for something like that, doesn't really think about the consequences, makes it, uses it once, and goes, ooh, this might not have been the best plan. Although, what plan? Oh my god, disaster. Once again, putting the chaos in chaotic good, you know what I'm saying? The power of the Yin Tiger Tally was far stronger and more terrifying than he had expected. He had originally wanted to use it simply as a supplement, but unexpectedly, its power showed the faint potential to overwhelm its own creator. Moreover, the thing didn't recognize any one master. If someone got their hands on it, no matter who that person was, good or bad, friend or foe, it would be theirs to use. God, it's like accidentally creating a nuclear bomb. The disaster had already been born into the world. It wasn't that Wei Wuxian had never thought of destroying it, but forging the Tiger Tally had been no easy task, and destroying it would have been just as difficult, demanding all his energy and time. Besides, he had already vaguely sensed that he was in a bad situation. Sooner or later, everyone would be after his life. The Yin Tiger Tally served as an immense force of deterrence. People wouldn't dare target him incautiously while he had this spiritual weapon, so he kept it as a temporary protection. All he did was split the Tiger Tally into two, so that its powers could only be activated when assembled, thus making it so it would never be used unless absolutely necessary. He had only ever used it twice, and each time blood had flowed like rivers. The first time had been during the Sunshot campaign. After using it the second time, he finally made up his mind and thoroughly destroyed half of the tally. Before he could destroy the other half, the burial mounds were besieged. Whatever came after that, well, it had no longer been within his means to care. Wei Wuxian was confident enough to provide commentary on his own creations, and on this topic he was quite sure that even if the clan that had snatched the remaining piece placed it on an altar to worship every day with offerings of tall incense and frequent prostration, the only remaining half of the Yin Tiger Tally was no more than mere scrap iron. However, Lan Wangji revealed something shocking. This Xu Yang appeared to have been able to reverse engineer the other half of the Yin Tiger Tally. Yup. Lands in exact... Oh, yeah. That's the person you want figuring it out. Yeah. Xu Yang had been very young, but also unusually smart, as well as an incredibly perverse heretic. The Jin clan of Lanling discovered that he actually could roughly piece together the other half of the Yin Tiger Tally based on the half left behind. Although the duration of use for the assembled, restored item was not long, nor was its power as strong as the original, it could already produce incredibly terrifying results. Wei Wuxian understood now. The Jin clan of Lanling still needed Xu Yang to continue the restoration of the Yin Tiger Tally, so they had to shield him. We have to take deep breaths about Jin Guangshan around these parts. Around all parts, actually. I'm pretty sure he's like the one universally just loathed character. And for good fucking reason. Sorry, my anger at that motherfucker, and I've lost my place again. Maybe the reason Xu Yang had annihilated the Chang clan hadn't entirely been to avenge wrongs committed against him while an impoverished urchin. Maybe he had used the lives of this family to test the power of the restored Yin Tiger Tally. I mean, you can kill two birds with one stone. You know, kill two clans with one stone. We're just gonna move on. No wonder the rumors had connected Wei Wuxian with the clan extermination case. You could practically imagine how those cultivators had gritted their teeth. That Wei Wuxian, if he hadn't made such a thing, there wouldn't be so many disasters in the human world. In any case, back to the events at Golden Carp Tower. The Jin clan of Lanling was determined to shield Xu Yang, yet Xingchen would not yield to persuasion or coercion. The two were stuck in a stalemate, and this finally alerted Xu Fengjun that, that is Ni Mingzhu, who had not attended this particular symposium. He was called upon to fly over from elsewhere and hurry to make an appearance. Although Ni Mingzhu was of a younger generation than Jin Guangshan, he possessed a stern character. He refused to tolerate, refused to appease, and after a severe scolding, Jin Guangshan was too embarrassed to speak and lost a great deal of face. We couldn't see that in the show? I want to watch Ni Mingzhu rip Jin Guangshan a new one. Yes? Please? Oh, we were robbed. We were so robbed. Ni Mingzhu, ever violent in temper, drew his saber on the spot and was ready to execute Xu Yang. Even when his sworn younger brother, Lan Fengjun, that is, Jin Guangyao, went up to smooth things over, he was furiously told to leave and viciously berated until he hid behind Lan Qichen, not daring to utter one more word. Finally, the Jin clan of Lanling had no choice but to concede. Wow. Well, we could... Anyway. Ever since he'd been dragged to the Golden Carp Tower by Xingchen, Xu Yang had been without fear the entire time, knowing he had a strong backing. Even when Ning Mingzhu's saber had pressed against his neck, he was still grinning happily. That tracks. Before he was carried away, he said quite warmly to Xingchen, "Taozheng, don't you forget me. Just you wait and see." Okay. Having listened to thus far, Wei Wuxian knew that wait and see was a certain promise to make Xingchen pay an incomparably excruciating price. We don't have to do Yi City today. We really don't have to. We don't have to do that. We can wait. We can put that off. We can do that later. As deserving of their... Oh my god, my stomach's growling. If you can pick that up on this microphone, which you might be able to, I'm sorry. As deserving of their name, the Jin clan of Lanling was the most thick-skinned of the clans. Although they agreed to get rid of Xu Yang in front of all the clans at the Golden Carp Tower, the moment Ni Mingzhu was out of sight, they swiftly locked Xu Yang in the dungeons and changed the verdict to imprisonment, never to be released. We're just gonna breathe. We're just gonna breathe. Once Ni Mingzhu learned of this, he was outraged. He exerted pressure on them once more, but the Jin clan of Lanling dragged their feet and refused to give that person over no matter what. The other clans all watched the spectacle from the sidelines with their arms crossed. Fucking clan leaders. Who would have thought that, not long after, Ni Mingzhu would suffer chi deviation and die? Isn't that just the craziest thing? He had cultivated faster than any of the previous Ni clan leaders before him, but also died sooner than any of them. With the most difficult man gone, the Jin clan of Lanling grew ever more unscrupulous as they brewed more crooked ideas. Jin Guangshan began thinking of ways to pull Xu Yang out of jail to continue the restoration of the Yin Tiger Tally and the research into its secrets. However, this was still ultimately a dishonorable affair. You fucking think? It wouldn't do to pull a criminal who murdered an entire clan out of jail without a proper cause. No. Right, you need a good reason to be able to do that. Thus, they turned their eyes to Chang Ping. They coerced and tempted him, harassing him non-stop until finally, the Jin clan of Lanling successfully persuaded Chang Ping to change his story. He withdrew all the grievances he had stated before and announced publicly that the clan extermination case had nothing to do with Xu Yang. This is hitting like every button I motherfucking have about corruption and leadership. Oh my god. Again, we're breathing. We're breathing. Having heard the news, Xiao Xingchen went knocking to demand answers. Fucking right? Chang Ping, full of resignation, said to him, "Other than ceding, what else could I have done? If I can't endure this, the rest of my family will have no way of living. Many thanks, Dao Zhang, but please don't help me anymore. If you help me again now, you would be harming me. I don't want the Chang clan of Yu Yang to end just yet." And thus was the tiger released back to the mountain. Wei Wuxian fell into a deep silence. If he were Chang Ping, it wouldn't matter whether the Jin clan of Lanling was a prominent clan who abused their power and could deceive the world as they willed. It wouldn't matter who promised him a future of glory and luxury. He would never give in. R.I.P. to Chang Ping, but Wuxian's different. On the contrary, he would personally visit the dungeons at night and cut Xu Yang into pieces alive, then summon his spirit back to do it again, over and over, until the boy wished he'd never been born into this world. This is why Wuxian... This is why he and I get along. This right here is exactly why. He and I, we're on the same fucking wavelength. However, not everyone shared the urge to drag an opponent down along with them. There were still several Chang family members alive, and Chang Ping himself was still young, with no wives or children. He had only just started on the path of cultivation. He had to carefully weigh his options, no matter whether it was the lives of his remaining family or his future and the cultivation being threatened. After all, Wei Wuxian wasn't Chang Ping. He couldn't be outraged on his behalf, nor could he help him bear his fear and endure this torture of both body and mind. After Xu Yang was released, he carried out his revenge, as expected, except he didn't enact revenge on Xiao Xingchen. Xiao Xingchen had emerged into the world alone and only made one good friend after descending the mountain. This friend, known as Song Lan, was also a reputable Taoist at the time. Aloof, proud, and highly regarded. The two had both wanted to establish a sect that focused on shared ideals rather than nepotism. They could have been considered the best of friends, and they shared the same aspirations and interests. People of their time described them in such words: Xiao Xingchen, bright moon, cool breeze, ever distant. Song Xichen dauntlessly scorns the snow and frost. And so Xu Yang decided to target his attack here. He reused the same tricks to thoroughly annihilate Baishu Temple, the place where Songlan had grown up and studied. In addition to that, he hatched and successfully carried out a plot to blind Songlan's eyes with caustic powder. This time, he was experienced in clan annihilation. He was exceptionally efficient in the act, leaving no clues behind. While everyone knew it was definitely him, what was the use in knowing? There was no evidence. Jin Guangsheng was purposely shielding him, and on top of that, Shi Fingjun of the Thunderous Temper had passed away. Shockingly, there was no one else who would do anything about him. Having listened to this point, Wei Wuxian suddenly found it a little odd. Although Lan Wangji seemed indifferent to worldly matters and too uncaring to meddle, based on Wei Wuxian's past understanding of him, he abhorred evil no less keenly than Ni Huasong's older brother. The Jin clan of Lanling's actions had been less than savory back then, and Lan Wangji never hesitated to speak out. Even now, he rarely attended their clan's symposiums and was completely unsupportive. 2 consecutive odious incidents of murder would have been the talk of the town back then. Lan Wangji would not have sat back quietly, so how come he hadn't brought Xu Yang under control? Just as he was about to ask, he remembered the discipline whip scars on Lan Wangji's back. Ooh. Ya had to give us beautiful art of husbands. Jesus God. What? Anyway. One lash from the... Oh, no, my face is right there. That can't be... That's not happening. There we go. One lash from the discipline whip was deadly enough. There must have been a period of many years when Lan Wangji was forbidden to step outside the clan's walls if he had committed a grave crime that resulted in so many lashes. These incidents had probably happened when Lan Wangji was being punished, or when he was nursing his wounds. No wonder he only said he had heard rumors. Those scars really bothered Wei Wuxian for some reason, but it wasn't his place to ask directly, so the feeling would have to be suppressed for the time being. He asked, so what happened to Xiaoxingchen Daozhang after that? After that, of course the curtains could only drop dismally on this play. In the past, Xiao Xingchen had bid farewell to his master and left the mountain, vowing never to return. He took his promises very seriously, but Songlan was blinded and had suffered further grave injuries, and so he broke his own vow. Carrying Songlan on his back, he returned to Baoshan Sanren's hermitage to beg his master to save his good friend. You know, we can call them what they are. This is fine. I'm having such a good time. This is good time. This is fun. In consideration of their past relationship as master and disciple, Bao Shenren accepted his request. Xingchen thus descended the mountain again, and his whereabouts had remained unknown ever since. Another year passed before Songlan also emerged from the mountain. The people of the world were astonished to find his once thoroughly blinded eyes could see light anew. But the truth was this. It wasn't that Bao Shenren's healing abilities were godly, but that Xingchen had dug out his own eyes and gifted them to Songlan, who had only been caught up in this mess because of him. Songlan had wanted to seek revenge against Xu Yang at first, but by then Jingguansheng had already passed away. Jingguan Yao had inherited control of the Jin clan of Lanling and risen to the position of cultivation chief. To prove that this would be the dawning of a new regime, the moment he ascended the stage, he got rid of Xu Yang and never spoke of the Yin Tiger Tally's restoration again. In the hopes of restoring his clan's damaged reputation, that's a joke, he implemented all sorts of restorative and reassuring measures to push any rumors down. Songlan pursued the lingering traces of his good friend of times past. At first, one still heard talk of where he had gone. However, as time passed, there were no more words to be heard. Since the Chang clan of Yuyang was also a small unknown family, many things about this whole affair gradually returned to dust. After listening to this long story, Wei Wuxian let out a quiet sigh, a sense of regret and sympathy sprouting in him. To end like this over something that originally had nothing to do with him, that truly is... Had Xiao Xingchen been born a few years earlier, or if I had died a few years later, then things wouldn't have turned out this way. If I were alive, I wouldn't have ignored something like this. I would have made friends with such a character. Why is that getting me? Maybe because they do meet in the show? And they did like each other. He then immediately felt both amused and annoyed at the same time. He mocked his own words, thinking, I would have taken care of it, huh? How? If I were still alive, then the Chang clan extermination case probably wouldn't have even gotten an investigation. They just blame it all on me and be done with it. I mean, he is absolutely not wrong. If Xiao Xingchen Dao Chang saw me on the road and I tried to get chummy with him, he'd most likely have given me a round of whacking with his whisk. They had already walked past the Chang residence and come to a cemetery nearby. Wei Wuxian saw the word Chang in dark red on the ceremonial gateway. How did Chang Ping die afterward? Who was the one who killed his surviving family with Ling Qi? God, that's right. Lan Wangji hadn't yet answered when, through the blue-tinged colors of dusk, there came a bang, bang, bang sound of a door being slapped. At least the sound resembled a door being slapped, but at the same time it wasn't. It was forceful and panicked, without a moment of pause. It also sounded dull, like it was separated from their ears by a layer of something. The two both froze. There were over 50 members in the Chang clan of Yuyang, and presently they were lying in their coffins, banging on the lids from the inside. They were banging wildly, just like the night when they had been terrified to death, but no one would ever answer and open that door for them. This was what the tavern waiter had spoken of, the sound of coffins banging coming from the Chang family graves. But the tavern waiter had also said the hauntings took place 10 years ago and had long since stopped. So why had the banging just so happened to start again the moment they arrived? Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji restrained their breathing at the time. No, I got that right. Restrained their breathing at the same time and noiselessly slunk closer. Once they were leaning behind the pillar of the ceremonial gateway, they both saw at the center of the cemetery, among the tombstones, there appeared to be a hole. It was an extremely deep hole, and next to it were mounds of dirt that appeared to have been recently piled there. A soft sound came from inside the hole. Someone was digging graves! Motherfucker. The two quietly held their breath and watched intently, waiting for the person inside the person inside the hole, to come out on their own. Not half an incense time later, two figures leapt lightly up from the open grave. Luckily, both Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji had good enough eyesight that they were able to tell it was two individuals. The two were firmly attached to one another like conjoined babies, with one carrying the other on their back. They were also dressed entirely in black, so it was extremely difficult to discern details. The one who leapt up stood there with their back to them, long-armed and long-legged. The one carried on their back, however, had their head and limbs drooping with no sign of life. But that was how it should have been. Since it had been dug out of a grave, it had to be a corpse. Thus, lifeless was normal. Wow. Thus, lifeless was normal. Thus, lifeless was normal. Just as Wei Wuxian was thinking this, the gravedigger whipped their head around and saw them. The person's face was shrouded in a thick black haze. Their facial features and appearance couldn't be discerned at all. Motherfucker! Wei Wuxian knew the person must have cast some sort of strange spell to conceal their face. Lan Wangji had already brandished Bichen, swept into the cemetery, and crossed swords. The gravedigger reacted extremely fast. When they saw the blue glare of Bichen's attack, they made a hand seal and summoned their own streaking sword glare. However, the sword glare was the same as their face, all wound up with a rolling black haze, so its color and aura couldn't be discerned. Now this sounds familiar. Somebody did this in the show. Or something got clouded it. This sounds familiar now. With a body carried on their back, the gravedigger was forced to fight in an odd posture. The two sword glares clashed multiple times before Lan Wangji called Bichen back. He gripped it in hand, a layer of frost rapidly overtaking his expression. Wei Wuxian knew why his expression had turned so piercingly cold. It was because even an outsider like him could easily tell from the exchange of attacks just now that this gravedigger was extraordinarily familiar with Lan Wangji's sword technique. Lan Wangji did not speak a word as the power of Bichen's thrusts grew ever stronger, the will of his sword akin to the force of mountains toppling and seas overturning. Holy shit, get you a man. The gravedigger was forced back again and again. Seeming to know they were no match against Lan Wangji while carrying a body on their back, and that they would be captured if this fight continued, they suddenly pulled the dark blue talisman from around their waist. A transportation talisman. He's gonna fucking escape. Such talismans could send a person 500 kilometers away in an instant. That sounds like a D&D spell. A very specific D&D spell. Dimension Door. I think Dimension Door works, I think it's 300. No, even less. Dimension Door only does, like, feet. It can teleport you 300 to 500 feet in any given direction. But this is fucking 500 kilometers. Motherfucker. But they also exhausted an immense amount of spiritual power, and the caster would need ample rest to regain their strength. Those without such power couldn't use them, which was why they were not in wide use despite being high-grade items. Wei Wuxian saw the person was going to escape. He hurriedly struck out twice with his palm, then bent one knee, smashing a fist to the ground. The power of this punch penetrated through layer after layer of earth, reaching the deepest part of the soil and piercing through the thick coffin lids. Ooh! It stimulated the deceased trapped within to a near crazed state. There was the sound of cracking, then 4 bloody arms sprouted from the ground, forcefully seizing the left and right legs of the gravedigger. We love a necromantic badass. Okay. The gravedigger was unperturbed. They poured spiritual power into their legs, shocking off the 4 corpse arms and sending them flying. Wei Wuxian pulled out his bamboo flute, and a sharp, piercing melody ripped open the falling night. 2 skulls broke through the ground, their bodies shortly following. Why did I trip over that? They crawled up the length of the gravedigger's leg, entangling their body like snakes, their mouths wide open and ready to bite down on their neck and arms. The gravedigger snorted disdainfully, as if saying nothing but petty tricks. Spiritual power coursed through their body again, but this time, after sending out the shockwave of spiritual power, they jerked at the realization that they'd been had. They had sent the corpse on their back flying as well. Wei Wuxian laughed maniacally, slapping a tombstone. Ha! What a great visual! Wow, that's such a good image. Whew. Lan Wangji, on the other hand, seized the limp corpse with one hand while the other lunged with Xichen. When the gravediggers saw the thing they'd just dug out had been snatched by another, they didn't dare stick around. They couldn't beat Lan Wangji in a one-on-one fight, never mind with an additional troublemaker on the side, causing mischief. Yes! They whipped the transportation talisman to the ground at their feet. There was a huge boom, blue flames rolled toward the sky, and their figure vanished within. Wei Wuxian already knew that the gravedigger had a transportation talisman, and that they'd find an opportunity to escape even if they caught them. The corpse they'd unearthed was already a clue, so he didn't consider this a total loss. He walked over to Lan Wangji. Let's see who they dug out. He was slightly taken aback once he saw. The head of the corpse was, surprisingly, already bludgeoned. The gaping wound didn't show any blood or brains, but rather wads and wads of cotton that were already slightly blackened. Wei Wuxian yanked, and the head came off easily. Dangling the exquisitely made fake head, he said, "What the heck is this? There's a fake corpse made of cotton and rags buried in the Chang family cemetery?" Only then did Lan Wangji take the corpse. He weighed it in his hand and realized there was something odd afoot. It is not all fake. Wei Wuxian felt the corpse all over and discovered its 4 limbs were limp, but the chest and abdomen area were hard and solid to the touch. He ripped the clothes off to see, and sure enough, the torso was real, but the other parts were all fake. Then, we've had some separated limbs in this story up till now. The head and 4 limbs made of cotton must have been used to deceive this torso to make it think it was still attached to its master. Judging by the skin color and where the left shoulder had fractured, this was the torso of their good buddy, which they had been seeking. The gravedigger just now had actually come to dig it out. Wei Wuxian rose to his feet. It seems the corpse hider has already taken notice of our investigation into this case. They were afraid we'd dig up the torso, so they came to transfer it. We arrived just in the nick of time and ran into them. But, his tone took a turn, why was that smoke mask so familiar with your clan's sword technique? It was evidence that Lan Wangji was pondering the same thing as well, as the layer of frost on his face had not yet fully subsided. I know the answer to this! I know who this is! This is a thing that happened, and they were like, how is it so familiar with the light? Right! I remember now. I fucking remember now. Okay. That was bothering the shit out of me. I'm glad I actually remembered something. Alright, memory revelation made me lose my place. Wei Wuxian said, that person's cultivation sure was strong. Strong enough that they could withstand the exhaustion of using a transportation talisman. They'd also cast a spell on both their face and sword. I can understand casting spells on your face, you don't want people finding you out, duh. But an unknown cultivator would have no need to cast concealment spells on their sword, unless their sword has a bit of a reputation within the cultivation world, and it's famous enough that people could recognize the sword glare. In that case, they'd have no choice but to conceal it, since they'd be exposed the moment they brandish their sword. Wei Wuxian then asked cautiously, Heng Wanjun, when you were crossing swords with him earlier, did you think they were someone you were very familiar with? Anything more specific than that would be discourteous to say. For example, Lan Xichen or Lan Qiren. Lan Wangji replied with certainty, no. Wei Wuxian had full confidence in Lan Wangji's answer. He did not think Lan Wangji was someone who'd conceal the truth or someone who couldn't face the truth. Since he said no, then it must be so. He did not like to lie either. The way Wei Wuxian saw it, Lan Wangji would sooner cast the silencing spell on himself than lie. So Wei Wuxian immediately crossed off those two out as suspects. Then that makes things even more complicated. Lan Wangji packed the torso into a different double-layered, evil-sealing Chengkyun pouch and put it away properly. The two made a few rounds around the area, then leisurely rounded back to the tavern district. The waiter had indeed kept his word. Most of the other taverns on this street were closed, but their sign was still up, the lights still on. The waiter was outside hugging a giant bowl, digging into his food, and when he saw them, he exclaimed in delight, "You're back! What do you think? We always keep our word, and did sirs see anything?" Wei Wuxian answered a few of his queries with a smile as he and Lan Wangji went to sit back at the same spot they had taken during the day. The table and the floor around his feet were piled with liquor jugs as he said, "Oh yeah, where were we? That grave-digging guy who jumped out of all of a sudden interrupted us. I still don't know how Changping died." Thus, Lan Wangji continued to succinctly and flatly tell the rest of the tale without embellishment. Xu Yang, Xiao Xingchen, and Song Lan had gone one by one, whether missing or dead. One day, many years after this case was uncovered, Changping and his remaining family members were found dead from Ling Qi overnight. What was more, Changping's eyes were also dug out. This time, no one could figure out who the murderer was. After all, everyone involved with the original case had already disappeared. However, there was one thing that was certain after examining the wounds. The sword that had inflicted Ling Qi had been the one wielded by Xiao Xingchen. Xuanhua, I believe, would be the pronunciation of his sword. Wei Wuxian paused in raising the bowl of liquor to his lips, dumbfounded at this turn of events. Ling Qi was Xiao Xingchen's sword? Then was the culprit truly him? Inconclusive, as Xiao Xingchen remains missing, Lan Wangji replied. If the living person himself can't be found, has soul summoning been attempted? Wei Wuxian asked. Yes, Lan Wangji replied. It was unfruitful. Unfruitful. Then either he hadn't died, or he died and his soul had dispersed. As an expert in the field, Wei Wuxian expressed his opinions on the matter. Let me tell you, soul summoning isn't that absolute. The time and place must be exactly right, and mistakes can happen. I bet there are a lot of people who thought that was Xiao Xingchen's revenge, right? What about you, Heng Wenjun? What do you think? Lan Wangji shook his head slowly and said, I will not comment without knowing the full story. Again, get you a man, not someone who's just spreading his opinions around without knowing anything. This man waits until he is fully informed so that his opinions are actually valid. You don't find that very much these days. Anyway. Wei Wuxian greatly admired his attitude and principles in handling matters. I mean, he smiled happily, taking a sip of liquor. He then heard Lan Wangji ask, What are your views? Wei Wuxian replied, Ling Qi is a form of torture. Punishment is precisely its nature. And with his eyes dug out on top of that, it's very hard not to associate it with Xiao Xingchen's deal with his own eyes. So it can't be helped if people assume the incident is Xiao Xingchen's revenge. But he contemplated for a second to find the right words. I don't believe that, from the very beginning, Xiao Xingchen stepped forward to interfere in this matter for the sake of gaining Changping's gratitude. He hadn't decided what would follow that before that waiter very attentively brought over 2 small plates of peanuts. Wei Wuxian was interrupted, but just as well, since he didn't need to continue anymore. He looked up at Lan Wangji and smiled. Heng Wenjun, why are you looking at me like that? Nothing. I don't know the whole story either, so I also won't comment. You're very right. No one should presumptuously judge anything before understanding the inside story and the sequence of events. I only wanted 5 jugs, but you bought me another extra 5. I probably won't be able to finish all this myself. How about it? Drink with me? We're not in the cloud recesses, so it's not against the rules, right? He was prepared to be rejected at first, yet unexpectedly Lan Wangji said, Let's. Wei Wuxian tisk-tisked. Heng Wenjun, you've really changed. In the past, when I drank a tiny jug in front of you, you were super mean, trying to throw me over the wall and hitting me too. And now you're even hiding Emperor's Smile in your own room, drinking in secret. Lan Wangji fixed his sleeves and said quietly, I did not touch a single jug of Emperor's Smile. Wei Wuxian teased, Why are you hiding the jugs then? Keeping them for me? Fine, you didn't touch them. I believe you, all right? I won't mention it anymore. Come, I absolutely have to see just how many cups it'll take for a land descendant, an abstainer from drink, to collapse. He poured a bowl for Lan Wangji, who took it and downed it without hesitation. Why is that hot? Wei Wuxian got inexplicably excited, right? Staring in his face. Me and Wuxian! staring at his face to see when the man would start flushing. Yet unexpectedly, he stared for a long time, and neither the colors nor the expression on Lan Wangji's face changed in the slightest. Those light-colored pupils gazed at him very calmly. There was no change at all. Wei Wuxian felt mightily disappointed, but just when he was about to egg the man on to drink another bowl, Lan Wangji's brows suddenly knitted. He lightly rubbed between his brows. A moment later, with one hand propping up his forehead, he closed his eyes. He fell asleep? He fell asleep! Normally, after drinking liquor, one should first become drunk and then fall asleep. How could Lan Wangji skip the drunk step and go directly to sleep? What he wanted to see was the drunk part. Wei Wuxian waved his hand at Lan Wangji, who looked stern and upright even in slumber, and clapped next to his ear. No answer. The man was surprisingly a one-bowl lightweight. Wei Wuxian had never expected such a situation. He slapped his own leg, contemplated for a moment, then circled his right arm around Lan Wangji's shoulders and carried the man out of the little tavern, dragging and pulling all the way. He was already infinitely used to fishing things out from Lan Wangji's person, so he took out the money pouch and found them 2 rooms at an inn. He dropped Lan Wangji off in one of those rooms, removing his boots and tucking him into bed, and went out while it was still night. Wei Wuxian made his way to a remote place outside the city, where he took out the bamboo flute on his waist, pressed it to his lips, and played a segment of a melody. After that, he waited quietly. These past several days, Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji had been together day in and day out with no time alone, so he had been unable to summon Wen Ning. Aside from the fact that he'd been trying to hide his identity before, there was another reason. There were lives from the Lan clan of Gusu that had been lost at Wen Ning's hands. Even if Lan Wangji treated him very well, Wei Wuxian couldn't just summon Wen Ning in front of him. Or rather, it was precisely because Lan Wangji was so good to him that Wei Wuxian felt too embarrassed to summon Wen Ning. No matter how thick-skinned he might be, this wasn't something to be shameless about. A little bit of growth. When his mind came back around, there was already an ominous clinking sound drifting to his ears. The figure of Wen Ning, his head hung low, surfaced beneath the shadows of the city wall ahead. He was dressed entirely in black, melting into the darkness around him. Only those pupilless eyes were glaringly white, savagely white. Wei Wuxian folded his hands behind his back and slowly circled the man. Wen Ning shifted, seeming to want to circle along behind him in his steps, and Wei Wuxian stated out loud, "Stand properly." And so he behaved and stopped moving. That delicate, handsome face looked even more dejected. "Hand," Wei Wuxian said. Wen Ning extended his right hand and Wei Wuxian caught his wrist, raising it up to closely inspect the iron cuffs and chains. Those were not normal chains. When Wen Ning went berserk, he was extremely violent. He could wring steel into mud. There was no way he would have intentionally allowed these chains to drag along behind him. These were probably a set of restraints specifically fabricated to shackle Wen Ning. Bones crushed to ashes? Even the remnant piece of the Yin Tiger Tally was being painstakingly restored. Of course, certain clans would also be drooling over the Ghost General. How could they bear to have him crushed to ashes? Wei Wuxian sneered and stood next to Wen Ning. After some thought, he reached out and started slowly kneading around in his hair. The one who kept and locked up Wen Ning must have forbidden him from thinking on his own. For him to obey the command of another, Wen Ning's consciousness needed to be destroyed, which meant there had to be something planted inside his brain. Sure enough, after kneading a few times, Wei Wuxian pressed on a hard little spot in a circuit acupoint on the right side of his head. He put his other hand on the matching plate on the left side of Wen Ning's head, and there was the same hard little object. It seemed to be something like the head of a nail. Wei Wuxian pinched the ends of both nails at the same time. Moving slowly, he pulled 2 long black nails from Wen Ning's skull. These 2 black nails were several centimeters long, their thickness that of a red string that strung jade pendants, and they were buried deep inside Wen Ning's skull. The instant the nails were out, Wen Ning's features trembled lightly, and a layer of something like black blood vessels spiderwebbed within the white of his eyes. He appeared to be enduring the pain with immense effort. He was clearly a dead man, yet he could still feel such a thing as pain. The nails were carved with intricate and complex patterns. Their origins must have been extraordinary, and the skill of the one who had created them might have been considerable. If Wei Wuxian wanted Wen Ning to recover, he would have to wait for some time. Wei Wuxian tucked the nails away, then looked down at the iron chains around Wen Ning's wrists and ankles. Dragging those clink-clanking things around with him all the time won't do. I'll have to find a spiritual sword to cut them off. The first one that came to mind was, of course, Lan Wangji's Bichen. Although taking a land sword to help Wen Ning cut off those chains didn't feel quite right, that was the spiritual sword he could most easily take, and he couldn't possibly leave Wen Ning like this, dragging around such a burden. Wei Wuxian thought, how's this? I will go back to the inn right now. If Lan Zhan is awake, I won't borrow the sword. If Lan Zhan is still asleep, then I'll borrow Bichen for a bit. With his mind made up, he turned right around. Unexpectedly, Lan Wangji was standing right behind him! We love a plot twist. Also, wait, does that mean that Wen Ning is in the show, he was burned. In the book, he was crushed. That's what I kind of took from that. Am I correct, or did I just cross two wires? Also, I did notice that in the book, it takes a while to recover from the nails, but in the show, for narrative and time and story and plot and pacing reasons, they basically immediately snap back to it when a nail is removed, after the nails are removed. But did I pick that up on the... Right. He wasn't burned, they just said they did. Yeah. That's right. He was pushed off to... Yeah. Eradicated. Yeah, Alice. Where? And... Oh, right, yes. Lan Wangji had arrived. Wei Wuxian's emotions were in a jumbled state after summoning Wen Ning, so it couldn't be helped that he wasn't sharp and alert. As for Lan Wangji, if he'd wanted anyone to notice his arrival, that was a simple feat for him to accomplish. So the moment Wei Wuxian looked back, he saw beneath the moonlight that icy face that was ever colder. His heart stopped for a second, and he was very slightly startled. He didn't know how long Lan Wangji had been there, or whether he had heard all that he'd done and said. If Lan Wangji hadn't been drunk all along, but had followed behind him all the way, then this situation was even more awkward. Not mentioning a word regarding Wen Ning in front of him, but coming out to summon Wen Ning surreptitiously and sneakily, the moment the man was asleep, it really was awkward. Lan Wangji had his arms crossed, with the sword Bichen hugged between them, his expression extremely cold. Wei Wuxian had never seen him so obviously upset, so he felt he had to speak first to give an explanation and ease the mood. Hang on, Jun. Lan Wangji didn't respond. Wei Wuxian stood in front of Wen Ning and stared back at Lan Wangji. He rubbed his chin. For some reason, a powerful sense of guilt enveloped him. At last, Lan Wangji dropped the hand holding Bichen and took a couple steps forward. Wei Wuxian saw him lunge straight for Wen Ning with his sword and thought he was going to slay him. His mind spun rapidly. Crap, was Lan Zhan pretending to be drunk just to wait for me to come out and summon Wen Ning so he could slay him? That'd make sense. Who really drops at one bowl? He tried. Hang on, Jun, let me explain. Ha! Lan Wangji slapped Wen Ning. The sound of the slap was loud and crisp, but the attack didn't hold any real power. Wen Ning only stumbled back a number of steps from the strike, swayed once, then steadied himself before he stood properly once more, looking completely at a loss. Though Wen Ning's temper wasn't as explosive and easily provoked in his current state as it had been when he used to go berserk in the past, it wasn't that much better now. A sword hadn't even poked him on the night when he was surrounded at Mount Defen, and he'd sent the attackers flying, going as far as picking one of them up by the neck to choke him. If Wei Wuxian hadn't stopped him, he would have strangled every single person present. But now Lan Wangji had just slapped him, and he still had his head down, looking like he didn't dare to retaliate. Wei Wuxian thought this somewhat odd, but he was more relieved. If Wen Ning struck back and these two started fighting, it wouldn't be easy to make peace. Presently, Lan Wangji seemed to think this slap wasn't quite enough to express his ire. He shoved Wending with one hand and pushed him meters away. He very unhappily said to Wending, "Go away." Wei Wuxian finally noticed something was off. Lan Wangji's two moves, whether they were action or speech, were both very childish. After pushing Wending far enough away, Lan Wangji seemed to finally be satisfied. He turned around and walked back, stopping beside Wei Wuxian. Wei Wuxian stared at him, studying every detail. There was nothing unusual about Lan Wangji's face or expression. In fact, he was even more solemn than usual, more serious, more flawless. His forehead ribbon was fastened extremely properly in place, his face unflushed, his breath unhurried, walking with wind beneath his feet, steady and firm. From the way he looked, he was still the same stern and proper, calm and collected, distinguished cultivator, Han Wanjun. But when he looked down, he noticed Lan Wangji's boots were on the wrong feet. Before he had come out, he had helped Lan Wangji remove his boots and toss them by the bedside. And now Lan Wangji's left boot was on his right foot, and his right boot on his left. Drunk Wangji is one of the best things. Is one of just the best things. End of sentence. Han Wanjun, born of a prominent clan, who regarded grace and etiquette so highly, would never come out in public dressed like this. Wei Wuxian ventured, "Han Wanjun, how many fingers is this?" He held up 2 fingers. Lan Wangji didn't respond, but solemnly reached out with both hands, one left, one right, and earnestly held those 2 fingers. With that motion, Bichen was dropped to the ground by its master. This was definitely not the normal Lanjan. "Han Wanjun, are you drunk?" Wei Wuxian asked. "No," Lan Wangji replied. Drunk people never admitted that they were drunk. Wei Wuxian pulled his fingers back, but Lan Wangji maintained his hold, still absorbed in his slack fists. Wei Wuxian watched him speechlessly, standing in the cold night breeze. He looked up at the moon. Other people slept after they got drunk, but Lan Wangji slept first and then was drunk. And when he was inebriated, he looked no different from usual, so it was difficult to tell. Wei Wuxian had had countless drinking buddies way back when, and he'd seen hundreds, if not thousands, of instances of bizarre drunken buffoonery. Some bawled aloud, some giggled endlessly, some lost it and made a scene, some passed out right on the streets, some lamented and wished for death, and some mewled weeping accusations of "Why don't you want me anymore?" This was his first time seeing Lan Wangji's type. Quiet, composed, upstanding in appearance, but incomparably weird in action. Perfect summation of Drunk Wangji. Perfect. The corners of his lips twitched, and he forced back his desire to laugh. He picked up Bichen, which had dropped to the ground, and slung it behind his back. "All right, come with me, let's go back." He couldn't leave Lan Wangji running around outside in this state. Gosh, heaven knew what else he'd do. Fortunately, Lan Wangji seemed very obliging, now that he was drunk. He inclined his head in a quite well-mannered motion and started walking with him. If anyone was to pass by, they would believe they were seeing 2 good friends roaming the night in deep conversation and would praise such elegant behavior. Behind him, Wending quietly caught up. Wei Wuxian was just about to say something to him when Lan Wangji whipped around and struck out with another enraged smack. This time, he slapped Wending's head askew, bowing it even lower. Even though the muscles of his face were stiff from rigor mortis and he had no facial expression whatsoever, his white eyes displaying no emotion to speak of, it was possible to tell that he looked very aggrieved. Wei Wuxian didn't know whether to cry or laugh as he pulled Lan Wangji's arm back. "What are you hitting him for?" Lan Wangji spoke in a threatening tone that he would never have used if sober. "Go away." Wei Wuxian knew you couldn't oppose drunk people. He quickly said, Okay, we'll do what you want. I'll make him go away." Is this drunk gay man not letting anybody get near Wei Wuxian for any reason at all? It's just he gets drunk and it's like, no, Wuxian mine. In a very, very blatant way, as opposed to his usual sober, at least somewhat more subtle way. My heart, my whole ass heart. Then he pulled out the bamboo flute. However, before the flute made it to his lips, Lan Wangji snatched it over. He stated, "You're not allowed to play for him." Wei Wuxian teased, "Why are you so bossy, huh?" Lan Wangji repeated unhappily, "You are not allowed to play for him." If he finished the whole sentence, he would say, "You're only allowed to play for me." Clearly. The only duet that you will be making is with me. Oh my god. Wei Wuxian realized something. The drunk often had much to say, and since Lan Wangji didn't normally like speaking, after he had too much to drink, he would repeat the same sentence over and over. He thought that since Lan Wangji disliked the sight of wicked arts, he probably didn't like him controlling Wenning with the flute. He would have to smooth his ruffled fur for a bit, and thus he promised, "All right, I will only play for you. Is that okay?" Lan Wangji gave a satisfied, but he was still fiddling with the flute in his hands and appeared to have no intent to give it back to him just yet. So Wei Wuxian had no choice but to blow 2 whistles instead. He said to Wenning, "Keep on hiding yourself. Do it properly and don't let anyone discover you." Wenning looked like he really wanted to follow along, but since he had received the order and was afraid Lan Wangji would slap him further, he very slowly turned around and, dragging his feet, clinking and clanking, walked away somewhat dejectedly. Wei Wuxian turned to Lan Wangji. "Lanjian, how come your face doesn't even turn a tiny bit red when you're drunk?" Since Lan Wangji looked way too normal, even more normal than Wei Wuxian, he couldn't help but speak to him in a normal tone. Yet unexpectedly, when Lan Wangji heard him, he suddenly reached out, hugged Wei Wuxian's shoulders, and yanked him into his arms. Caught off guard, Wei Wuxian crashed headfirst into his chest. He was still dizzy when Lan Wangji's voice came from above. "Listen to the heartbeat." "What?" Lan Wangji said. "The face doesn't show it. Listen to the heartbeat." As he spoke, his chest vibrated with a low sound, his heartbeat beating constant and strong. It was a little on the fast side. Wei Wuxian understood and pulled his head back. "I can't tell from your face, so I have to figure it out by listening to your heartbeat." Lan Wangji honestly replied. Wei Wuxian hugged his belly as he laughed. Could Lan Wangji's skin be so thick that not even a blush could surface? He didn't look to be the type. An inebriated Lan Wangji was so surprisingly honest, and compared to his normal self, his actions and speech were much more unrestrained. It was so rare to see such an honest and frank Lan Wangji, so to tell Wei Wuxian to stay courteous without playing a little prank? Yeah, right. He rushed Lan Wangji back to the inn. Once they entered the room, Wei Wuxian pushed Lan Wangji onto the bed, then removed that mismatched pair of boots. Considering Lan Wangji likely didn't know how to wash his own face right now, Wei Wuxian removed Lan Wangji's forehead ribbon and fetched a bucket of hot water and a cloth. He wrung the cloth dry and folded it into a square, then gently wiped his face. During the process, Lan Wangji did not make any protests, but obediently allowed his own face to be squished around. When the cloth washed near his eyes, he'd squint, but otherwise he kept staring at Wei Wuxian without blinking once. That was accurately depicted in the show. That's one of the best things about Drunk Wangji, is that he just doesn't take his eyes off of Wuxian. Like, ever. It's the best. Drunk Wangji is just the best. Anyway. Wei Wuxian was brewing all sorts of mischief in his mind, and seeing his clear, innocent eyes, he couldn't resist giving the underside of Lan Wangji's chin a light scratch with his finger, chuckling as he did. What are you looking at me for? Am I good looking? Wei Wuxian happened to be done with washing now, so he didn't wait for Lan Wangji to respond before tossing the cloth back into the water bucket. Your face is washed. Do you want to drink some water? There was no response behind him. When he turned to look, Lan Wangji had the water bucket in his hands and had already dunked his face. Wei Wuxian, greatly alarmed, hurriedly snatched the bucket back, putting it aside. I didn't tell you to drink that water. Lan Wangji lifted his head, looking impassive as drops of clear water rolled down his chin, wetting his front collar. Wei Wuxian watched him, his mind filled with mixed emotions, not knowing what to say. So did he drink the water or not? Lan Zhen best not remember anything when he sobers up, or he'll be too ashamed to face anyone for the rest of his life. Wei Wuxian used his sleeve to wipe the droplets dripping off of Lan Wangji's chin, then put his arm around his shoulders. Hang Wenjun, are you going to do whatever I tell you right now? Lan Wangji asked. You'll answer anything I ask of you. Wei Wuxian pushed a knee onto the bed and crooked a smile. Well then, let me ask you, have you ever snuck a sip of the Emperor's smile you hid in your room? No. Do you like rabbits? Yes. Have you ever violated the rules? Yes. Do you have someone you like? Yes. Wei Wuxian pulled his punches with his questions since he didn't actually plan on prying into Lan Wangji's private business. He was simply ensuring that the man was indeed going to answer every one of his questions. He continued, What do you think of Zhang Cheng? A frown. Humph. What about Wen Ning? Clearly disinterested. Heh. Wei Wuxian pointed at himself with a wide, happy grin. What about this one? Mine, Lan Wangji answered. We need a moment. We need a moment. Need a fucking moment to recover. Oh my god. Whew. Whew. Okay. Whew. All right. All right. All right. Gather myself. Gather myself. Okay. 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 Wei Wuxian suddenly got it. He took off Bichen and thought, I pointed at myself just now, but Lan Zhen probably misunderstood this one as Bichen on my back. The levels of bi disaster, of bi obliviousness are completely accurate. I really can't say anything. As a bi myself, we are indeed like this. Ask the wife. She'll tell you. Having thought this, he got off the bed and walked around the room from left to right, from east to west, with Bichen in hand. Sure enough, Lan Wangji's eyes also closely followed him wherever he went. So very candid, so very open, so very direct, so very naked. Wei Wuxian was practically going weak-kneed from that gaze, which was fervent as fire. Ooh, okay, all right. Out of nowhere, he raised Bichen before Lan Wangji's eyes. You want it? I do, Lan Wangji replied. He seemed to think that wasn't enough to demonstrate his desire, so he seized the hand that was holding Bichen, his light-colored eyes gazing directly at Wei Wuxian. He breathed a soft sigh, then pronounced each word with force as he repeated himself. I do. That was nice. that was nice. Wei Wuxian knew full well the man was a drunken mess. Knew what he said wasn't directed at him. But still, those two words struck him so hard his arms went weak, as did his legs. That is exactly what by disasters do. Yeah, they're not talking about me, but I'm still going to get tremendously turned on. And he thought, honestly, this Lan Zhan, what a terrifying man he would be if he were this honest and enthusiastic toward a girl. You just gotta have patience with disasters, okay? Just a lot of patience. Ask the wife. Wei Wuxian regained his composure and asked, "How did you recognize me? Why are you helping me?" Lan Wangji moved his lips softly, and Wei Wuxian moved closer, ready to hear the answer. Yet unexpectedly, Lan Wangji suddenly changed expression and shoved, pushing Wei Wuxian down on the bed. Oh no. Oh no. Okay, alright. How mean is this? It is 5 p.m. on the dot. But we are. Okay, so we're just gonna, you know, where is it? Seem not in the future. You know what? My back's feeling fine. The chair's going fine. We're gonna go a little bit longer than 5, maybe just a few minutes longer than 5, because that would be entirely too cruel to stop now. So we're not gonna, and we're just gonna keep right on going, because, you know, I'm just, for some reason, I'm just super curious about this scene. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Okay. Candlelight was extinguished. Ooh! With a sweep of his hand, and Bichen was once again dropped to the ground by its master. The push made Wei Wuxian see stars. He thought perhaps Lan Wangji had sobered up. He called out, "Lan Zhan!" A certain familiar spot on the small of his back was tapped, and he felt sore and numb all over, unable to move, just like the first night he'd spent at the cloud recesses. Lan Wangji withdrew his hand and lay down right next to him. He covered both of them with the blanket and tucked the corner around Wei Wuxian carefully and thoroughly. It is high time. Rest. As it turned out, it was that terrifying Lan routine at work. Wei Wuxian's question session was cut short. He stared at the ceiling of the bedroom. "Can we not chat and rest at the same time?" "No," Lan Wangji said. Well, all right. There would always be another chance to get Lan Wangji drunk. He'd get his answer sooner or later. "Lan Zhan, undo this. I rented 2 rooms. We don't have to squish together in the same bed," Wei Wuxian said. After a moment of silence, Lan Wangji reached over and groped under the blanket, then slowly started undoing Wei Wuxian's sash. Oh my god, there's art. 1 second. Wei Wuxian shouted, "It's fine, I'm good. I didn't mean that kind of undo. Okay, I'll lie here. I'm sleeping." Within the darkness, it was deathly still. Wei Wuxian was silent for a while before he spoke again. "I finally understand why your family banned liquor. 1 bowl lightweight and an awful drunk, too. If every Lan is like you when they're drunk, liquor deserves to be prohibited. Whoever drinks gets a beating." Lan Wangji had his eyes closed. He raised his hand to cover Wei Wuxian's mouth. "Shh," he hushed. Wei Wuxian's fit of annoyance was stuck between his chest and his teeth, unable to be expelled, unable to be dispelled. Ever since he'd returned, it seemed like every time he'd wanted to tease Lan Wangji like he had in the past, had ultimately become his own undoing. You finally picked that up, okay. This shouldn't be. Where had he gone wrong? This time, Wei Wuxian did not shut his eyes the entire night. He stayed awake, firmly hanging on until just before Mao time. And when he felt that numbing, aching limpness had passed and his limbs could move once more, he calmly and unhurriedly stripped off his top robe under the blanket and tossed it out of bed. Then, he pulled on Lan Wangji's sash and forcefully tugged his top robe down by half. At first, he'd wanted to completely strip him too, but halfway through the act, he was slightly startled to see the brand under Lan Wangji's collarbone. His hands unconsciously stopped. Remembering the disciplined whip scars on his back as well, Wei Wuxian knew that this wasn't right. He was about to immediately pull Lan Wangji's clothes back into place, but in that momentary delay, Lan Wangji seemed to have felt a chill. He shifted slightly with furrowed brows, and then slowly opened his eyes. Okay, taking a break for 2 seconds to show you this art. I gotta click over here, sorry, my bad. This art, look at... Oh, beautiful! I'm losing it at, like, the tree and, like, the flowers and shit. But, I mean, like, of course, like, the hair. Hello. The hair. And kind of everything else about it. I didn't think we were going to get art of them under the covers, but here we are. Anyway. The moment his eyes opened, he tumbled off the bed. Jesus, I forgot to click away from my own damn face again. Okay. Where on earth, right? The elegant Heng Wanjun couldn't be blamed for his entirely inelegant overreaction. No man would have a thought in his head for elegance when, after a night of drunkenness, they awoke half-naked in bed with another naked man, both of them pressed tightly together, skin to skin, under the same blankets. Wei Wuxian used the blanket to half cover his chest, revealing his smooth and bare shoulders. Lan Wangji gaped. You... Wei Wuxian answered nasally. Lan Wangji said, last night, Wei Wuxian winked and propped up his cheek with one hand, smirking wickedly. Don't do this to him! Heng Wanjun, you were so bold last night. Do you not remember anything from yesterday evening? Wei Wuxian asked. Looked like he really didn't. Lan Wangji's face had paled to the color of snow. It was good that he didn't. If Lan Wangji remembered that Wei Wuxian had snuck out last night to summon Wen Ning and started asking questions, it would be bad if Wei Wuxian lied, and bad if he told the truth too. After his many failed dalliances and many instances of shooting himself in the foot, Wei Wuxian had finally recovered his past might for once, and he struck back at Lan Wangji. Although he was tempted to chase after more victories, he also still wanted to trick Lan Wangji into drinking more for his own petty amusement. So he couldn't afford to have the man traumatized and on his guard from here onward. Quitting while he was ahead, Wei Wuxian peeled back the blanket to show his trousers in proper order and his yet-to-be-removed boots. What an honorable man! Heng Wanjun, I only stripped our clothes for a joke. You remain pure and unsullied. Don't worry. Lan Wangji was still frozen on the spot, but before he could manage to say anything, the sound of shattering dishware came from the center of the room. The sound was not foreign. This was the second time they had heard it. The evil-sealing Chang'an pouch pinned on the table was agitated again and had toppled the teapot and teacups. It was more violent this time, with all three pouches going off at once. One of them had been a drunken mess the night before, and the other had been getting tossed about by said mess. So naturally, they had put the duet at the back of their minds. Wei Wuxian was worried that Lan Wangji might accidentally stab him to death on the bed in a moment of impulse, born of his immense shock. He hurriedly said, "Work! Come, let's get down to work first." He grabbed a robe and draped it on, scrambling out of bed, and reached out for Lan Wangji, who had just risen to his feet. He had meant to pull him up, but his gestures looked like he was going to rip off his clothing. Lan Wangji hadn't recovered yet from his scare and took a step back. Something tripped him, and he wobbled in place. When he looked down, he realized it was the sword Bichen, which had lain there the entire night. By now, the rope that tied the pouch had already been worked loose, and a ghastly white arm had crawled halfway out of the opening of the tiny Changkung pouch. Wei Wuxian reached into Lan Wangji's half-opened robes and fished around, digging out a flute. Heng Wanjun, come on, don't be scared. I wasn't going to do anything to you. I was only taking back the flute you took from me last night. I need it back, he said, and even very thoughtfully helped him pull the robe over his shoulders and tie his sash. Lan Wangji stared at him with a complicated look, looking like he really wanted to ask the details of what had happened the night before, after he'd gotten drunk. But attending to business was a habitual priority, so he forced himself to endure it. He composed his expression and took out his 7-string guqin. 3 evil-sealing Changkun pouches, 1 sealed the left arm, 1 sealed the 2 legs, and 1 sealed the torso. Those 3 body parts could already constitute most of a body. They affected each other, their resentment increasing exponentially and becoming more troublesome than before. The 2 of them played rest 3 times before the agitation gradually ceased. Wei Wuxian put away the flute and was just about to clean up the corpse parts strewn on the ground when he suddenly went, "Oh?" He said, "Our good buddy trained pretty good, eh?" The sash of the funeral garb worn by the torso had come loose. The collar tugged askew to reveal the solid and powerful body of a man. His shoulders broad, his waist thin, his abs defined, strong, but not exaggerated. It was a manly body innumerable men dreamed of having themselves. Wei Wuxian checked it out every which way and couldn't resist giving those abs a slap or two. Heng Wanjun, look at him. If he were alive and I gave him a smack, he'd probably rebound and smack me right back. How in the world did he train to manage those results? The tips of Lan Wangji's brows seemed to twist. He didn't speak. Unexpectedly, Wei Wuxian slapped it twice more, and Lan Wangji finally, expressionlessly, took the evil-sealing Changkun pouch and silently began to seal the corpse. Wei Wuxian hastened to get out of the way. A moment later, Lan Wangji had resealed all the body parts and even tied a bunch of dead knots around the pouch. Wei Wuxian didn't think anything strange of it. He looked down at himself to inspect the shape of his current body, raised his brows, then tied his sash properly and appeared to don an air of decency once more. He glanced to see that Lan Wangji had put away the Changkun pouches and was unwittingly casting looks his way, his eyes seemingly full of a certain hesitation to speak. Wei Wuxian purposely broached the subject. "Heng Wanjun, why are you looking at me like that? You still worrying? Trust me, I really didn't do anything to you last night. Of course, you didn't do anything to me either." Lan Wangji hesitated for a moment. Then, seeming to have made up his mind about something, he asked quietly, "Last night, other than taking the flute, what else did you do, right?" Wei Wuxian said. "Not much, you just talked a lot." Lan Wangji's snow-white throat bobbed once. "Talked about what?" "Nothing much," Wei Wuxian replied. "Just, for example, you really like..." Lan Wangji's eyes stiffened. "Really like rabbits," Wei Wuxian finished. I loved that this is actually in the book! They put it in the show, but it's actually in the book. It is book canon. Oh my god, I love that. Lan Wangji closed his eyes and turned his head away. Wei Wuxian very thoughtfully consoled him. "It's fine. Rabbits are so cute. Who doesn't like them? I like them too. Like to eat. Yeah. Come on now, Heng Wanjun. You drank so much last night. Well, not much, actually. But you were so drunk last night, you probably don't feel that great this morning. Go wash your face, drink some water, then sit for a bit longer. We'll depart after you feel better. The direction it pointed to this time is south, partially to the west. I'll go down and buy breakfast, so I'll leave you alone." He was just leaving when Lan Wangji called out coldly, "Wait." Wei Wuxian looked back. "What?" Lan Wangji stared at him fixedly for a good while before he asked at last, "Do you have any money?" Wei Wuxian smiled. "Yes! Don't I know where you put your money? I'll bring you breakfast too, okay? Take your time, Heng Wanjun, no rush." He exited the room, closed the door, and stood in the hallway hugging his belly, laughing soundlessly for a good while. Lan Wangji seemed to have been dealt a heavy blow. He locked himself in the room for a very long time, and while waiting for him, Wei Wuxian leisurely descended the stairs and went out of the inn, strolling around on the streets and buying some random food items. He sat on the steps, his eyes scrunched up into crescents as he ate, enjoying the sun. Where's the fan art of this? That is the cutest fucking image. After a while, a group of 13 or 14-year-old children ran past on the street. The child leading in the front ran fast as the wind, and his hand was yanking on a long string. At the end of the string was a kite, flying neither high nor low, bobbing up and down as it did. The children behind had toy bows and arrows, and they shouted as they chased that kite, shooting miniature arrows at it. Wei Wuxian had loved playing this game in the past. Archery was a mandatory art studied by every clan junior, but they didn't usually like shooting properly at normal targets. Besides shooting nefarious beings during night hunts, they enjoyed shooting kites like this. Everyone got a kite. Whoever could fly it the highest, farthest, and shoot the most on mark was the winner. This game had been popular only among the younger juniors of various cultivation clans, but when the trend got out, children from ordinary families had liked it a lot too. Of course, their little arrows paled in comparison to the power packed in those wielded by privileged and proficient clan juniors. Back when Wei Wuxian was at Lotus Pier and played kite shooting with the Zhang juniors, he'd won first place many times. Zhang Cheng, on the other hand, was always second. We were having a perfectly good time. We were having a perfectly good time. And then out of fucking nowhere, just bitch slapped me with Zhang Cheng pain. Either his kite flew too far and the arrows couldn't reach, or he'd shoot his kite, but it hadn't flown as far as Wei Wuxian's. The two of them had a kite a whole size larger than everyone else's, constructed in the shape of a flying Yao beast with dazzling, extravagant colors, a mouth open in a howl, and several pointy tails drooping down to roil with the winds. Seen from afar, the kite was extraordinarily vibrant and vivacious, not savage so much as charming and adorable. The spine of this kite had been personally constructed by Zhang Fengmin before being passed off to Zhang Yanli to paint it for the two of them, so every time they took it out to compete, they'd always felt a sense of pride. Having remembered this, the corner of Wei Wuxian's lips curled lightly, and he unconsciously looked up to see what the kites those children were flying looked like. All he saw was a big round shape, completely gold. He wondered, what is that thing, a pancake or some monster I don't know of? Just then, a gust of wind blew past. The kite wasn't flying very high in the first place, and not in an open, spacious area, so it fell immediately when the wind hit. One of the children called out, "Gah, the sun's fallen down!" Wei Wuxian instantly understood. This group of children was most likely playing a game that mimicked the Sunshot campaign. This was Yu Yang. Back when the Wen clan of Xingchen was at the peak of its prominence, they had lorded over everyone and everywhere, and Yu Yang was technically not too far from Xingchen. The locals must have suffered profoundly at their hands, either from rampaging Yao beasts they hadn't locked up properly, or by being abused and humiliated by the domineering cultivators of their clan. After the Sunshot campaign, the Wen clan was crushed by the combined might of the other clans, their century-old foundation collapsing in an instant. Many places near the Xishan area all happily engaged in pastimes that celebrated the annihilation of the Wen clan, going as far as transforming such pastimes into cherished traditions. This game was probably one such tradition. The children stopped the chase and gathered around, looking very troubled. They started discussing the situation at hand. "What do we do? The sun hasn't been shot yet, and it dropped on its own. Who will be the big boss now?" Someone raised their hand. "It's going to be me, of course. I'm Jin Guangyao. The Wen family's big villain was killed by me." Wei Wuxian sat there on the steps in front of the inn, watching with relish. In games like this one, the now infinitely glorious cultivation chief Lan Fengjun was, of course, the most popular character. Although his background was too embarrassing to speak of, that was precisely why the higher he climbed, the more admirable he grew. During the Sunshot campaign, he spent years as a spy and took to the role like a fish released into water. He had the entire Wen clan of Xishan fooled both inside and out, and they ran around in circles, unknowingly betraying their own secrets. After the Sunshot campaign, he curried favor by every means possible, using his quick and clever wit in thousands of ways, until finally he sat in the position of cultivation chief, the head of the cultivation world. Such a life was worthy of being called legendary. If Wei Wuxian was the one playing, he'd want to try being Jing Guangyao once too. Picking this kid to be the big boss made a lot of sense. Another child objected. "I'm Ni Mingzhu. I've won the most battles, and I've taken the biggest number of captives. I should be the big boss." Jing Guangyao said, "But I'm cultivation chief." Ning Mingzhu waved his fist. "So what? You're still my Sandi." Don't you still have to run away with your tail between your legs at the sight of me? Jin Guangyao was indeed very cooperative, very into the act. He hunched his shoulders and ran off. Another one said, "You short-lived devil." To have chosen a certain cultivation leader naturally meant the child in question probably looked up to and liked said cultivator. Ni Mingzhu got mad. "Jin Zixuan, ooh, you died sooner than me. You're even more short-lived." Jin Zixuan refused to yield. "So what if I'm short-lived? I'm ranked 3rd. That 3rd place was only for looks." Just then, one of the kids seemed to tire of running and standing. He shuffled to the steps, sat down next to Wei Wuxian, waved, and said like a good old peacekeeper, Okay, stop fighting. I'm the Yiling Patriarch. I'm the most powerful. I suppose I can maybe be the big boss." Wei Wuxian was speechless. He looked down. Sure enough, this kid had a tiny, thin wooden stick stuck at his waist. This was probably Xingchen. Only a small child would be simple enough not to fuss about good and bad and only care about rating things by strength, and therefore condescend to be the Yiling Patriarch for a bit. Another one countered, "No, I'm Sendu Xingshou. I'm the most powerful one." Yiling Patriarch said very understandingly, "Oh, Zheng Chang, can you match me in anything? Haven't you lost to me every time? Where did you get the face to say you're the most powerful? Aren't you embarrassed?" Zheng Chang retorted, I can't match you? Don't you remember how you died?" That shallow smile on Wei Wuxian's lips instantly dispersed. It was like being jabbed by an extremely poisonous little needle without a warning. A slight stabbing pain suddenly flared all over his body. The Yiling Patriarch next to him clapped. "Look at me, Chengcheng in my left hand, the Tiger Tally in my right, plus a ghost general. I'm invincible." He raised a stick with his left hand and a rock with his right, then laughed maniacally. "Where's Wen Ning? Come out." You know, this scene in the fucking show was painful enough. Now we're getting like some super extended version, and I'm about to fucking cry. I just had to pause for a second. Jesus. A small child raised his hand among the crowd and said meekly, "I'm here, I want to say, since it's during the Sunshot campaign, I haven't died yet." Wei Wuxian felt he had to step in now. He spoke up, "Cultivation leaders, may I ask a question?" No adult had ever intervened when this group of children played this game before, and it wasn't even to scold, but to pose a serious question. Yiling Patriarch looked at him in wonder and caution. "What's your question?" "How come there's no one from the Lan clan of Gusu?" Wei Wuxian asked. "There is." "Where?" Yiling Patriarch pointed at a child who had not spoken a single word throughout. "That one's him." Wei Wuxian looked. Sure enough, that child was very delicately handsome, obviously solidly on the path to becoming an attractive young man. On his smooth forehead was fastened a white rope, a substitute for the forehead ribbon. Wei Wuxian asked, "Who's he?" Yiling Patriarch pursed his lips disdainfully, then said, "Lan Wangji." All right. This group of children had truly captured the essence. One certainly should keep their mouth shut and not speak when playing Lan Wangji. The corners of Wei Wuxian's lips curled up anew all of a sudden. That extremely poisonous little needle was pulled out and tossed to an unknown corner, and the stabbing pain was all swept away in an instant. Why is that so fucking sweet? Wei Wuxian mumbled to himself, "Well, ain't that strange? How can such a dull person always make me so happy?" Oh! 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 Ooh. We've taken another step forward on the obliviousness path. Clear out of nowhere. Wow. When Lan Wangji finally came downstairs, he saw Wei Wuxian sitting on the steps with a bunch of kids sitting next to him and sharing meat buns. Wei Wuxian ate his bun as he directed two little kids pressed back to back in front of him. Right now, the ones in front of you are millions of Wen cultivators, every single one of them fully decked out in military gear, and they have surrounded you in an impenetrable circle. Look sharp. That's right, just like that. Good. Lan Wangji, pay attention. You're not your usual self right now. You're covered in blood. You're very heavy with killing intent. Your eyes are fierce. Wei Wuxian, get closer to him. Do you know how to spin your flute? Let's see it. Spin it with one hand. Do it more nonchalantly. Do you understand what that means? Come here. Let me teach you. Wei Wuxian owed and passed the thin little stick over to him. Wei Wuxian expertly twirled Xingchen with 2 fingers, and the group of kids crowded over in a flash, exclaiming aloud in awe. Lan Wangji commented, with an ellipsis. He approached silently. When Wei Wuxian saw him come over, he dusted off the dirt on his bum and bid farewell to the children. It took great effort for him to stand, and as they went, he laughed the entire way, as if he'd been poisoned with something strange. Lan Wangji commented, Sorry, Han Wangjian, I already shared the breakfast I bought for you with them. Let's buy more later. Lan Wangji said. How was it? Weren't those 2 kids cute? The one with the rope tied around his head? Guess who he's imitating? After a long moment of speechlessness, Lan Wangji finally couldn't hold back any longer. He asked, What else did I do last night exactly? One-track mind, Lan Wangji. Damn. You just walked out to like the cutest scene possible. Still obsessed about what he did or did not do last night. It couldn't be that simple. Otherwise, why would Wei Wuxian still be laughing even now? Wei Wuxian waved him off. Nothing. You didn't do anything. It was me who was being nonsensical. All right, Han Wangji, I'm about to talk about serious business now. Speak, Lan Wangji said. Wei Wuxian began in all seriousness. The coffin banging at the Chang family cemetery had been still for 10 years, but it suddenly started up again. This is definitely not a coincidence. There must be a cause. What do you think the cause is? Lan Wangji asked. Good question. I think the cause is the torso being dug out, Wei Wuxian said. Lan Wangji said. His thoughtful expression reminded Wei Wuxian of his serious face the previous night, when he had drunkenly held onto Wei Wuxian's 2 fingers. He painfully held back his laughter. He said solemnly, I was thinking, the dismemberment can't have been a simple act of revenge regarding a personal grudge, but a malicious subduing spell. The one who dismembered the corpse intentionally selected places with unusual hauntings to settle the body parts. Fight poison with poison, maintain equilibrium through mutual checks and balances, Lan Wangji said. Correct, Wei Wuxian said. So when that gravedigger dug out the torso yesterday, there was nothing to subdue the resentful spirits of the Chang family, and the coffin banging started up again. The concept and method are the same as the knee saber offerings halls subduing the saber spirits and wall corpses. Perhaps it was mimicking the Ni family's saber offerings hall from the start. It seems this individual is deeply connected with both the Ning clan of Qing'e and the Lan clan of Gusu. They're probably not just somebody. Just some nobody. There are not many such individuals, Lan Wangji said. Wei Wuxian agreed. Things were slowly coming to light, and since the other party has started trying to move the corpse bits, that means he or they are starting to panic. They'll definitely make a move soon, so even if we don't go find them, they'll come knocking. With all the searching, they'll give themselves away sooner or later. Besides, our good buddy's arm will point the way for us. But we should probably move faster too. With only the right arm and a head left, we have to get to those before they do. The 2 traveled southwestward. This time, the location the left hand had pointed to was Shudong, a place blanketed by thick fog. And it was a ghost city that locals avoided at all cost. Well, that's one fucking place to end Volume 1. Jesus shit! Oh! 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 Bastards! Bastards! What fucking... I'm so mad. I'm so mad. I'm furious. But that was Volume 1. We got through the rest of it today. Holy shit. And like right on the nose too. It's almost 5:30. In terms of like hour-long sessions, we just had a double session. Well, shit. Wow. Okay, wait. Now I have to think about, because I wasn't planning on finishing it today. I thought we were going to finish it on Tuesday. So now that we finished it today, I have to think of all the shit that I'm supposed to say right now that we finished it. Volume 2 comes out in May. I still believe mid-May. I haven't actually checked the specific date again yet, so I'm still gambling on mid-May, but it comes out mid-May. The next live stream series that I'm doing is not actually a book. If it was a book, it would be the Villain Saving System. But the next live stream series I'm doing is actually a visual novel. It's called Dramatical Murder. So there will still be a lot of reading. We'll just have a lot of visuals, and I believe a fully voiced English cast to go with it. If you haven't heard of Dramatical Murder, it is a great, extremely gay, explicitly gay, visual novel from a while back. I think it first came out in like 2012 or 2013 in Japan, and it's gotten, I believe, fan translations into English over all this time, but just last year, they finally released an official English translation. And one of my lovely subscribers, I believe, she's patron, she's also a patron. I would know her name if I had the chance to look her up. And I was prepared for this moment, but it's happening ahead of time, so I don't. She was generous enough to give me, she had an extra, code for the game through Steam. So if you don't know what visual novels are, they're kind of what they sound like. You have visuals, but you also have a lot of words. So you're reading, but you're seeing things at the same time. That's visual novels in a nutshell. Very, very Japanese. I have been meaning to actually play Dramatical Murder for a very long time. There was an anime version that came out a few years back that de-gayed everything. So I was super disappointed, as was everybody else, but at the same time, I really love the world and everything. Do I remember anything? No, not a single thing. I don't even remember the name of the guy that I wished that he had hooked up with. But we're going to hook up with him when I play through it. I just don't know his name. So the next thing is Dramatical Murder. And then after Dramatical Murder is probably Volume 2 of MDZS. Probably. Technically, I should be jumping right into Dramatical Murder, like next week, now that it's done, right? But I need a couple of weeks of Tuesdays and Thursdays off, just as a matter of kind of a mini vacation. We're still in the middle of moving. We're still in the middle of a whole bunch of stuff, getting all these different things done, and air conditioning installed. We're getting a whole bunch of electrical work done. We're having to bring a plumber in to add some new stuff so we have a place to plug in the washer. All of these things we're having to arrange. I have an incredibly long day tomorrow that starts at like 7 in the morning and doesn't end until the last worker gives me their freaking assessment for work. So I need the next couple of weeks to have a couple of days extra off. But then after that, we will be going right into Dramatical Murder, which shouldn't take too long. I believe just going on one route takes about 10 hours. And after that, it's kind of playing by ear until MDZS lands. And that's the immediate future. I hope you enjoyed a double whammy. It really wasn't that bad. I'm sure my makeup is horrific, but I'm getting some new stuff soon that should stay in place for longer than 45 minutes. This really wasn't so bad. 2 hours, not bad. I could probably definitely do Dramatical Murder in 2-hour chunks, because with English voice acting, that will be less reading. So on a regular basis, that will be easier on my throat. Oh my God, I just glanced at the chat and somebody mentioned Dream Daddy. Dream Daddy was like so good though. Like really. That was a fun time. That was just fun. Somebody really, they tried to give us everything. That was so fun. The writing was actually pretty good too in terms of prose, which is not something you find very often in visual novel. Anyway, it's been 2 hours. I have no idea when the wife is supposed to get home because she's out signing stuff for the probate lawyer and all that kind of adult shit. But it's been 2 hours. Anji, you're very sweet. With the no, your face is always aesthetically pleasing. You're super sweet. In fact, let's see how the... Oh, wow. Yeah. We got eyeliner smudges all over the place. And also, bottom eyeliner? What's that? We don't know what that is. We don't know her. We don't know what eyeliner on a wet line is. We have no idea. Woo! Okay. So, when I do 2 hours at a time again, it will be when I have the new eyeliner that I'm getting. Most definitely. So yeah, if you let me know, either right now or in comments below, one, what were you working on for this extra long session? But also, how you liked 2 hours. Because I think it could generally be a bit long for some people, but it would help in the sense that we would get through things a whole lot faster. And I feel like that's a win. Was there anything else I needed to say? I know I'm going to end the stream and remember like 5 things that I'm supposed to say as I drop a bookmark. And the last thing of this, in the last session of this. Okay, I covered Dramatical Murder. I covered what's coming next. I covered up my little mini vacation before we start Dramatical Murder. And then it's volume 2 of Motozushi. I think those were the big things. If there is something that I have forgotten, I will make a community post for it. But I don't think I have. Maybe. Possibly. Okay. Well, in that case, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up because I'm starving. But the awful thing about you people is that I could sit here and talk to you for another 2 hours because you're very chatty and delightful. So I'm going to have to be the adult in the room and call a close to this very long stream. So then I will see you on stream in another couple of weeks when we start Dramatical Murder. You should absolutely tune in for that. It's a great little sci-fi dystopia world thing with a lot of great gay stuff. And those will be live streams, if I mention that. Please take care of yourself. As per usual, at this point, this should be something that we are consistently working on, taking care of ourselves. I say this in a mirror. And I will see you on stream in a couple of weeks. But Guardian's not going anywhere. Guardian's staying where it is. We're still going with that. Actually, if I have the opportunity, I might tick up Guardian to 3 times a week when I can. That depends, because I'm still moving. But anyway, please take care of yourselves. I will see you on the next stream for Dramatical Murder. Thank you so much. We got through volume 1. That feels fantastic. And it's so good, by the way. I don't think I ever actually commented on the thing that we're reading. It's so good. The English translation feels so smooth and it's so well done. This sets a bar super high for English translations, specifically from Chinese languages. But anyway, go away now. I'm going to stop talking one of these days, and the stream is going to end. Please take care of yourself. I will see you very soon.